asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv.
Well, June 20th is a massive day for freedom of expression, but very few people know anything about it because there is very little about it in the media. Not saying there's nothing in the media. I know the Telegraph and their technical section, their science section, or their social media section, or whatever, has written about it, and one or two other papers have written about it, but it isn't getting a lot of discussion. It's absent as a topic on the talk radio shows of the UK, which I listen to all the time, BBC Radio 5, LBC and the rest of them. This is about copyright law. Article 13 of the EU's Copyright Directive, which will be voted for on the 20th of June, if it passes, will impose mandatory upload filters on internet users. What does it mean? No better man to tell us than the co-founder of LiveLeak.com and also the host of the Trigger Warning Show. Check out triggerwarning.tv and Cogent Radio. That's on tonight, in fact, at 10:30 UK time, not long after we finish. We'll talk more about that a bit later on. Let's welcome back to the programme my great friend and colleague Hayden Hewitt. And I want to put that out there straight away so that there's nothing ambiguous about this. Hayden is a friend of mine. Welcome back to the programme, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me, Richie. I appreciate it.
Good to have you on. This is massive. It isn't, I don't think, getting a lot of coverage, apart from, as I said, one or two pull-out sections of various newspapers. What's going on, Hayden? What is being proposed in Article 13 of the Copyright Directive?
Well, like many things, we're getting bits of news and bits and bats and not much coverage because Celebrity Love Island's on and things like that. But to give it its full name, it's Article 13 of the Copyright in the Digital Single Market Directive, because the EU love an impressive name. Ostensibly, it's a law to protect copyright holders, which, taken at face value, fair enough. The current system works, but it's difficult. It could probably be improved. However, the EU have put Axel Voss in charge, and he hates the internet. So what he's done is put some amendments in there that essentially, if this goes through, could completely change the internet as we know it, completely change it, and, taken to its furthest degree, lock out anyone from the EU from many, many websites.
Break that down now in the most simplistic way that you can. And I'm not being disingenuous by saying that. Make it understandable for a 3-year-old. What are they? Because copyright, we think of copyright, I shouldn't go to an internet site and I shouldn't download a book. I should buy the book, or I shouldn't download a television show. I should subscribe to the channel, or I shouldn't download a film. I should rent or buy that film. I've always seen copyright as very simplistic. I can't use an Iron Maiden song in the show and then put it on YouTube because I don't own the song. That's how I understand it. It's fairly simple. Why is this different?
Well, if this copyright directive did anything to affect any of that, it would be a start. It doesn't. The main problem here is something they've come up with called the link tax. Now, what this will do is essentially mean that if you share a link to a news article, a snippet of a news article, a thumbnail of a news article, you need a license. You need to pay the owner of that article.
You're shitting me. You're shitting me.
No. This is straight up. It's all there. Sadly, the journals from the group, the Juni committee who'll be voting on this, will not be available for the next foreseeable future for some strange reason. But this is directly there, the link tax. Now, what they're doing essentially is shifting complete responsibility to website owners. And we're not just talking Twitter, Facebook, Google went through this in Spain, very similar. Bloggers, people with small websites, any kind of social media. Because what do people do? We share a story. We share a link to a story. Now, they've got this inalienable right remember this, inalienable right to remuneration, which means although you've got companies like the Associated Free Press that are on board with this because they distribute news so they can only win, it means that supposing you had Richie Allen Broadcasting, huge news gathering organization, and you thought, no, I want people to share our links, so we're not going to charge you. Well, tough, you have to. They will be forced to charge by law. Now, how
can they justify this? Hang on a second.
I don't know.
Imagine if I own the Mail Online. Oh, wouldn't that be marvellous? Talk about the cash rolling in. We could pay for 1 million independent radio shows on triggerwarning.tv. Can you imagine if we own the Mail Online? How could you possibly say that you're losing out if my friend Jean Ann links to a story on the Mail Online? It's getting people to come back to our website because we own
the
Mail Online.
Probably agree with you. I don't know what their stance is, but most publishers see this as a terrible idea because what they're selling this as, even though it's dressed up as a Copyright Act, is, of course, we're fighting against fake news. Now, I'm going to go into this a little deeper on our show later. We'll talk about that after. But what this is going to do is have a massive chilling effect on actual news and information. And, of course, those people just releasing fake bullshit news because it's their thoughts on it and they build a following and they pay for it will have greater effectiveness. What this will do is destroy websites, possibly limit our access whilst we're within the EU to websites, because it'd be far cheaper just to shut us out. Far, far cheaper than to start trying to put upload filters in, because that is a dead loss. The failure rate on those will be huge. The amount of legitimate content that will be prevented going through would be massively damaging to most sites.
So you're telling me, my friend, that what they're going to do is make it next to impossible for independent journalists like me and thee to critique the output of the mainstream media.
Well, here's something interesting on this, because I was doing my digging today, as I like to do. And there's this thing called the Berne Convention, which is the oldest international copyright treaty. This is an international treaty signed, by all the movers and shakers around the planet. And the Berne Convention guarantees a right to quote news articles and create press summaries, which ostensibly covers snippets.
Which is what we do.
There is an international treaty protecting your right to do this, and the EU are just overruling it completely. And, when people tell us, well, we can change things from within, better to be a part of the EU, our MEPs, nobody's MEPs, get to vote on this. They don't get a vote. They might get one down the line, but they're not getting a vote. Voss himself admits this isn't the best idea, but at least it's progress. He's not clear what it's progressing towards, but also this will stifle web innovation. This will stifle any new news platforms trying to come through, because imagine that you're trying to break a small independent news platform, but nobody can share your links because they can't afford to.
Nobody can share your links, even if you want them to share your links, because they have to pay.
You have to charge them due to your inalienable right to remuneration.
And conversely, you can't take snippets of articles, or you can't take snippets of audio from other content creators, even if it's national news, because you can't do that either.
Not unless you pay.
Now I want to
just one last thing.
Go ahead.
This also signals the death knell for a lot of Creative Commons releases as well, because no major news organization or information organization or news monitoring organization will be able to release their stuff as Creative Commons, because you've got to pay for it, even if they want to. So one way or another, they're gonna. If this goes through, I mean.
Is it likely to go through? What do we know about?
Oh, yeah, hugely. It's looking virtually uncontested. Now there's some voices being raised as to the fact that hang on, lads, this is a bit uncomfortable. But again, like most of these things, no one really cared till it was getting on the verge of too late. I mean, a bit like the net neutrality vote, which was, I think, the Senate overturned, and they're going to go back through. But one way or another, they're going to try and force that through, that we lose net neutrality. But people now don't care because it's been politicized, and they've been sold the idea by very fake news, but because it's come from the right, in quotes, people, that net neutrality is a socialist, ridiculous harnessing of the creative power of ISPs, who only have our best interests at heart. So between that and this, it's looking very bleak. It's looking very, very bleak. I'm not doing an Alex Jones here and saying we should have an emergency broadcast.
No.
But this dark times, dude. I mean, seriously, dark times. Everything I've believed in about the net, everything I've cherished. Yeah, and we and other website owners that we know try so hard to make sure we adhere to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act and do it properly and do it right and work with publishers. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. One way or another, they're going to stop this democratization of information. They're going to stop it.
You've explained this in a way that I can understand it, but there are one or two people still bewildered. Let's go through it step by step again. This aspect of it, very basically. The individual, forget about the Trigger Warning TV show or InfoWars or the Richie Allen Show.
Would it help if I put it as an example?
Yes, give us an example.
Okay.
Give us an example, yeah.
You log on to Twitter.
Right, you log on to Twitter, yeah.
You see, you go on the internet and you find an article on the Daily Mail and you think, oh, look at that. Sensational clickbait. I'm going to share that. You can't. Because if you do, either you pay or the platform pays. And you're not going to pay. And the platform probably can't afford to pay. So you cannot share that link. It will be removed. And it's not the platform's fault. Why should they have to pay every time you want to share a link to a news organization? And the news organization might not want to take money for it, but they have to.
But now they have to because it's been enforced. So you're in a debate on Twitter or on Facebook. There is an article on today's Guardian, God forbid, that might support your theory or your political point of view. You cannot share that.
No. Not a link, not a snippet, not a photograph. That's it.
Memes come into this as well, don't they?
Yes, memes. That's an end of the meme culture as well because they're copyright. Even though no one has ever, as far as I know, really pushed to have anything removed because it's a meme. Apart from individuals, I mean, of course, companies and corporations and media companies.
And this means, Hayden, that when...
But this is the most effective method of killing debate online.
Killing debate. Killing free speech.
Because what you've got to think about is you could say, well, it doesn't matter, I'll do it without links. Yeah, but there's the potential of you sharing a link which could cost that company money. So they have to screen every upload, every post. And that means algorithms, which, as we have learned, can get things terribly, terribly wrong, which places another burden of staff upon the company. And the income online is dipping, which means these companies can't do that. And, you know, if Twitter and Facebook are going to struggle, what's Brian's blog going to do? Now, chances are the EU won't go after Brian's blog. But if somebody decided they didn't like Brian, as people are wont to do, especially these days, and reported him, Brian could owe somebody a lot of money. And Voss originally wanted to make it retroactive as well. So retrospective. So you had to remove everything that's been up already. But that's hit a couple of snags, obviously. Wow. People say it's impossible. But this one thing, which people think, well, that's an easy thing to do, I won't link. But the ramifications of this single amendment to a copyright bill are huge for the internet in terms of stifling free speech, in terms of destroying platforms, preventing competition, stopping new companies coming through, new web companies, new news companies. It's stifling everything. But the Associated Free Press, AFP, loves it.
So ultimately, this boils down to what we've been talking about for a long time, you and I. that the establishment, whatever we want to call it, whatever name you want to give it, is saying there is an accepted definition, version, explanation of any event. This is it. Accept it.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about it, do so in abstract terms.
Do it in abstract terms.
Without quoting the original article, so no one knows what you're talking about. No one's interested.
So obviously this has got nothing to do with me, but because we're on this particular show, let's just look at this show, for example. So I spend several hours a day traversing the UK's chat shows, political talk shows and news programmes, and I'm looking for examples of, whether it be politicians, whether it be journalists themselves offering opinions that I feel can be contradicted and that I feel I can present evidence will contradict those. That's what I call, and what many men and women before me called, the monologue. I call it the monologue. I can't do that and use that audio anymore.
Well, I'm not sure. It's not. I've not been able to find an absolute definition beyond what seems to refer to, for want of a better phrase, written work.
I've got one here. Can I read it just very quickly?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would bet a pound to a pinch of shit that they're going to apply this across the board completely.
They are, because I'm reading an article from newsinternational.org, and they're bringing YouTube video and audio into it as well. So
there we go then.
So yeah, basically you
can only speak the news or discuss the news if you are an accredited and wealthy news operator.
So that's an outrage, isn't it? Because if you're speaking to a listener and you want that listener to consider that
Well, Richie, I didn't make something perfectly clear. What listeners? You won't be allowed to broadcast. You'll have to go through the algorithm to make sure you're not doing anything copyright. And if that slips up, you're removed, and then your listeners aren't really going to be bothered with the platform because they can't use it. So what listeners?
What readers? Explain how that works again. Well, for live broadcasters like us, what will that mean?
If the broadcasting platforms or the platforms that you use are made responsible, they can't afford to just say, okay, open house, just go crazy, guys. We'll pay for it all.
You're talking about our streaming providers, right?
Yeah, or anyone. The platform that you end up on, YouTube or LiveLeak or
Podomatic, whatever. Yeah,
Twitter. They can't afford to pay every time you infringe this act.
Yeah.
So they would have to either say, right, sorry, anyone from the EU is not allowed to use our service.
So it's game over then.
Or they would say, we have to filter everything, which they can't do manually because it's impossible. So they'd have to come up with algorithms, which how good are they going to be? In my experience, not very. It's basically, it's over. It's if this goes through as is, eventually it's over because who can afford it? Twitter won't pay it.
Been saying for 2 years this was coming, and I was told by a friend of mine who still works at the BBC and was very helpful when I was based in London, and he or she has been in touch with me ever since and said to me last year that he or she regularly attends Ofcom briefings and meetings, and one of the things that was going to happen was that Ofcom was going to come knocking on the doors of people like me and you and say, you can't do this anymore, right? You might be doing it from your own home-built studio, but you can't do it anymore. You're going to have to get a license from us. And when you do, you're then subject to our regulations and so on.
When you first got in touch with me, way back in the day as TPV was getting off the ground,
2014, yeah.
The first thing we spoke about was this.
Absolutely.
And I got you on the LiveLeak's show to talk about this. Then I had someone on the week after to talk about the way they were extending it to everybody. And that hasn't happened yet. And I think they're struggling with that. But this EU one is clever.
This trumps it.
Well, this just cuts straight to the bone. And it does something that on first appearance you think is, well, that's just a bit ridiculous, but okay. But if you start to look at the effect this will have across the board, this is the most effective they've ever been.
Now, you've got one of the biggest websites in the world. In the world. That's not an exaggeration. Millions and millions of views a week. LiveLeak is in the top 500 most looked at websites on the planet. What can LiveLeak do about it?
Right now, we don't know. We're looking at it. We're going to obviously, you know me, I don't start flapping and running around in circles. We have to wait, see how this goes through, see if it's challenged, and then see what the ramifications are and how it will work. And when we've done all that, then I'll be able to comment on that more. I'm not being evasive. It's just I don't want to go.
No, I know you're not.
Right
no,
now,
I'm just asking you.
You know me. You know, we talk a couple of times a week. My initial response to everything is, "Oh, fuck you."
Yeah.
But the problem is that's why it's not LiveLeak isn't just mine, because it would have gone out of business 12 years ago. Because that's my initial reaction to all these things. Fuck you, make me, and if they would. But we do have to sit down and have a very serious conversation about this, about the we went through all the GPDL stuff. I mean, luckily LiveLeak doesn't take anything personal from anybody.
What is that now? Bear in mind you're talking to an ignoramus.
Yeah, that's the data protection laws the EU just passed that caused everybody monumental headaches, and the right to be forgotten on every website, and the right to see everything they've got, and to know every cookie and every this and every that, and it puts a massive burden of paranoia on the casual user as well. You know, because when you go on a WordPress website, for example, if you check the cookies, there'll be loads of them, and you'll be thinking, God, they're tracking me everywhere. And they're not. They're really not. They're just operational cookies. And everyone's so paranoid about privacy now, which is ironic considering how much personal information they give out on social media.
Give everything. They give the whole story.
Yeah.
We've had a load of tweets on this, by the way.
Yeah. And then they shit themselves because a website's got a cookie, as if somehow the government actually care about you. You know, there's a paranoia which is being fueled by the very similar people to who are making these rules, and they're keeping everybody just in this state of mild terror. I mean, look, after the terrorist attacks, you know, what did the British government come up with? Let's go after WhatsApp. I mean, really? In the days of the IRA, we didn't ban telephones.
No, we didn't.
No, it's just the whole thing's.
Do you see a connection with the likes of politicians, not just in this country, but in other countries, demanding that digital laws are passed whereby everybody has to be identifiable online, no anonymity?
I'll tell you now, from all the years with LiveLeak and the being spoken at by politicians, they never talk to me, but they have spoken at me. They hate the internet and what it allows people to do. They hate it. I'm not sure they're absolutely threatened by it, but they hate it. They detest it. The little people should be quiet. Online anonymity. For many years, I've been out there as me.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to find out where I actually live. It's very easy to come up with an address for me, but I do not live there. However, I made a life choice that I'll be out there and I'll suffer whatever comes from it. And a couple of times, as you know, very nearly did. And,
yeah.
You know, it limits work that I can do, and it limits companies that will deal with me and things of that nature. Although less and less as I get older, and less divisive and dangerous and difficult, I guess. But some people want to have their opinions without destroying their lives, which is reasonable. You know, maybe someone does want to hate Muslims, but doesn't want to do it overtly. It's his opinion. He wants to share it. Or he hates black people, or he hates white people, or he hates Jews, or hates Christians. Doesn't like this, likes the colour purple, secretly is gay. Whatever it is, it's their right to talk about these things with anonymity. But anonymity is difficult, and also because every freedom has a downside. For example, with LiveLeak, I'm frequently accused of being a racist because many racists speak on LiveLeak. But isn't that the price we pay for a level of freedom? Is that we're going to see stuff we do not like. That's how it works. You can't have it all your own way. You can't have your cake and eat it, which is what everybody wants now. Everybody. Social media tries to give them that as well, which I think is genuinely appalling.
Well, what you're talking about here is, again, something that's concerned me for a long time. I mean, I have on occasion over the years, I've criticised people for their Twitter handle. But it's only ever been when, somebody will say something like, I'll do this or I'll do that. And I will say, look, it's easy to be a keyboard warrior when you're hiding behind Billy Bignuts 2015 as your handle.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We can all do that. But ultimately, I wouldn't deny people their right, even though I've bitched about it. I would not deny them their rights, because you hit the nail on the head there. People who might have a bit of information that they think might be vital to people, but they don't want to take the risk of repercussions, whether it be from the general public or whether it be from the authorities, should be able to use the handle Billy Bignuts or whatever. Yeah.
Even less important than that is someone might have an opinion, a belief that they do not act on in real life, but wish to share, but they don't act on it. But if they did, it could harm them. And, nowadays that could be something as simple as, I work for one of these right-on startup companies, but I'm a fervent supporter of Israel.
Yeah.
You don't want to say that at work, or, I don't really agree with transgender politics. You daren't say that in most places of work now. So let people have their opinions. It's not hurting anybody. Yes, there are trolls, but there are always going to be. There have always been bullies. There have always been morons. But the one that always annoyed me, with anonymity, of course, is, let's say in terms of LiveLeak, when I'm accused of cowardice, or why don't you draw Muhammad on video if you're not a coward? It's like, well, I don't really want to. I don't see what I'd get from that. But how about you, Stud Muffin 2009, make a new account with your face and your name, and do you know what? I'll be right there with you, mate.
Absolutely.
And do you know what? They never do it, Richie. It's quite amusing.
No, they wouldn't. No, and that's the idiotic side of it. And like I said today, and I meant it, the cretin who gets wound up by people like Jess Phillips and Stella Creasy to the point where they say you should be raped, that's just an idiot. Beyond, that, and I'm not trying to virtue signal here, that's just foolish. But it's also, as Jess Phillips herself admitted, it's also harmless. Because I've been around the block a few times, as you have, my friend. The person who's going to knock you out from behind with the handle of a shovel is not going to tell you that he's going to do it on social media. It's as simple as that. It doesn't work like that. There's always been poison pen letters. Fools who will say things like, I'm glad your baby died. I mean, that's a terrible thing. When somebody has a miscarriage and some dope, just because she's a politician, some dope goes on there and says stuff like that, he's a clown. But I would say to her, listen, sorry you had to read that, but just block that dickhead.
I had it. I get it. As you know, I get it.
Yeah, you get it. I get it myself.
I hope your child's born retarded, and hope he gets a brain injury. Hope your son. The last one was, I hope your child gets cancer. But you know what?
Lovely.
Like I give a tin shit.
Exactly.
What a no mark on the internet.
Exactly.
Thinks.
Because it's not harmful.
I would like to address one tweet actually, because I've been atted into it. And I would hate to pass up an opportunity to indulge in some body shaming.
What did I say?
So it says, Richie, and myself, do you not keep up with the Kardashians? And just to show that I'm an all-round modern guy, that's the bird with the fat ass, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I'm getting ready for my show tonight, so I can't help it.
Yeah, you're getting into trigger warning mode. Let me just remind our listeners, just to drag it back to something, to someplace serious. It's 20 minutes to the top of the hour. Hayden Hewitt, the co-founder of LiveLeak.com, which has done more than any other website in history to present a counter-narrative to the imperialist explanations, the imperialist policies of Western democracies in the Middle East. No website in the world ever has presented films and testimonials and testimonies from people on the other end of that than LiveLeak.com. I've been singing his praises since I first came across it. He presents Trigger Warning as well, a terrific show, irreverent, pissy at times, funny, and often hits the mark on these stories. It's on at 10:30 tonight. Triggerwarning.tv, LiveLeak.com, Cogent Radio. Check it out. Follow Hayden on Twitter there. We're talking about something very serious. On June 20th, which is only a week tomorrow, I think, they're going to vote in Brussels. They're not really going to vote because, as Hayden said earlier on, MEPs have no say in this. On the EU's copyright directive, there's a longer name for that, which seeks to impose mandatory upload filters on internet users, which will effectively make it impossible for people to share content, whether it be newspaper articles, whether it be photographs, memes, videos, whatever. You know, just as an example, as we were talking about earlier on, to make a point, to introduce something into a discussion on social media or whatsoever. As Hayden pointed out, the likes of the publishers, the likes of the Mail, the likes of the Guardian, particularly the Guardian, much as I despise much of what is in the Guardian these days, this progressive nonsense, but particularly the Guardian, which is in trouble and is in danger of going out of circulation and is depending more and more on people reading it online. The publishers themselves won't be thrilled about this. This is coming from a far more sinister place than that. And as you said, and I'm not misquoting you, I know you'll jump down my throat if I am, this is the beginning of the death of, you know, free speech and open discussion online if it goes through.
If this goes through, and if the fight to defeat the FCC in the States fails and we lose net neutrality between corporate, well, let's just say censorship, it's quicker and easier, corporate censorship, which is always going to be more effective than political censorship, over in the States, which we know about the effects of the loss in net neutrality could have. This, however, I can't even describe how bad this could actually be for internet users within the EU. I genuinely can't. And it pisses me off even more now that we're probably not going to get our Brexit.
Oh, no chance. That chance, that died on the 24th of June 2016. As you well, 24th. Yeah, you saw the. I doubt, because you're preparing your own program, you've probably not heard my monologue. But staggeringly, one of the Lord's amendments that the government was against, because obviously the EU withdrawal bill passed Parliament. Hayden knows this. It then goes to the Lords. The Lords sent it back with 15 required amendments. One of the things the Lords wanted was it wanted that in the event of no deal, or in the event that there couldn't be any agreement, the Lords wanted the MPs, basically, Parliament, to step in and take over. So Theresa May said to the Conservative Party, they've got to vote against that. We can't have that. And we have this hilarious scenario today where the Dominic Grieve, the former Attorney General, and a group of rebel Tory MPs said to Theresa May, we're going to vote against you on that amendment, basically giving the Lords what they want, unless you agree to give us what you don't want to give the Lords. And she agreed. And she won the vote. She won the vote on the face of it against the Lords. But Dominic Grieve and Anna Soubry and Chuka Umunna, the Labour MP, they all rushed to the camera to say, well, it's brilliant, we got what we wanted anyway. She can't effectively leave with no deal. She cannot go to WTO terms. She can't basically now negotiate on a platform with the EU where they think we might actually just jack it all in and leave with no deal. It's a tyranny, Hayden. It's a tyranny. This is what happened today. A tyranny. And I've described that accurately. I've not embellished that at all. That's what's happened.
No. It's
wonderful.
I did catch some of this earlier.
Yeah.
Just I didn't want to. On our show, I was actually going to avoid that for once, because Graham, who co-hosts the radio show with me, he's actually a Remainer. So sometimes I'd get him too cross. So I was going to avoid that and just hit him over the head with the link tax thing tonight. But yeah, it's jokers to the left was, we can't win, Richie. We can't win. All we can do is prolong our defeat at this point. That's all we can do. But sadly, we're so fractured now with the particularly US influence polarization of politics and identity politics. We've got whataboutery, which was, of course, introduced by the Russians. And that's not one of those. No, but it is theirs. They perfected whataboutery. They perfected that form of. That's not me doing it. It's the Russians.
No, I know that. No,
that is a Russian influence, because for every bit that the US wants to disrupt the internet, that the British Parliament wants to disrupt the internet, that the EU does, so do the Russians. Be under no doubt whatsoever. If you think the EU hate it, I guarantee Putin hates it more.
There are no heroes.
There are no heroes. There are absolutely no heroes whatsoever. There are none left. Every country wants shit done for them Turkey's one of the worst for getting in touch and threatening you. They never finish. They're always in touch. We'll ban you. Ban us. Just do it. Stop threatening it. So they did for 12 hours.
For 12 hours.
We didn't change anything. I mean, Turkey puts in more requests than any other country I've known for information on dissenting voices. They all hate it, Richie. All of them. I guarantee Russia, well, we already know Russia does massive internet crackdowns. China, we all know about China. There are no heroes to be picked. There are no heroes out there anywhere now. They're all against us. And the problem is, so are we. So
sadly, that's true. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know? I've been at this a long time, and you know what you were saying there about the polarization and the whataboutery. We got into some of that with Maria Heller earlier on. This is going to do nothing for that, only encourage it. No. Because let me just read you a tweet there. What you've described there is brilliant. And Sean, it's not brilliant, of course, but it's brilliantly described. Sean McDonald has tweeted. He's I can't remember if Sean is in Barnsley or Burnley or he's in Bury. He might be in Bury. So he says, to back up an argument with links to evidence, that'll be a thing of the past. Everything now will just be opinion and conjecture.
Can I just say, actually,
absolutely right.
Let's be honest, though. Sadly, with the way discourse is now, if let's say, you know, we had that little one of our usual little Barneys on chemtrails, for example.
Yes.
It'd be like us doing that, and me going, well, here's some proof they don't exist in an article. And what people don't go, you think I'm going to take the word of that rag?
Yeah.
That's a lie. So when I say something, the government said this, it's a lie. And no one realizes that if you assume everything from an outlet you don't like, or everything from a government is a lie, that is as sure a sign of insanity as believing every word of a government. Critical thinking does not mean discounting that which you do not like. And it means that you have to look at what governments are saying, because usually how governments work is even the biggest lie is wrapped around a truth. Because you need that little bit of truth in there somewhere. You need it. You need something you can hang a factual hook on.
Well, to sell it,
that's where and that's where you build from. And that's where you see where it's going. But now it's at that point. Well, why would I believe anything from them? I don't believe them. That's clearly a lie. Oh, all the scientists say that are on the payroll of the pharma company. You know, you can't win now. You cannot win because people automatically, without reading, dismiss. And then for the facts, they read a headline.
But I feel sorry for them.
People don't even click an article now, Richie.
Yeah, but they've been induced to that state of mind.
Of course.
And
of course.
I'm being asked on. I was going to bring it back to this just briefly because I'm certainly not going to argue with you. I respect your opinions. Hayden mentioned the chemtrails because he doesn't believe that that's happening, that there's an agenda, or that it is happening right now. And as is, he's absolutely right not to believe that. But the reason he mentioned that is because I suppose it's an increasingly rare thing, especially in the so-called independent media and especially in social media circles. It is kind of sadly rare for people not to see eye to eye on certain issues, but to not let that get in the way of talking about other things.
On loads of things, don't we?
On loads of things, yeah.
But I would like to say with the chemtrails, what I said, because as you know, I'm a shocking fence sitter. I do not believe for 1 minute that they are being sprayed from commercial airliners.
Yeah, that's right. You did say that to me, yeah.
That's my absolute. So when people see all the holiday jets going over with contrails, I don't believe that the 1315 to Benidorm is loaded up with aluminium and strontium.
Not the Benidorm plane anyway.
Yeah, or Malaga. Take your pick. I don't believe it. I've not seen anything that would induce me to believe it. If I did see evidence that convinced me, I mean actual evidence, not a YouTube video by someone who's suspiciously sweating. I mean actual evidence, I would be on here now with you going, well, chemtrails. You know that it's not a religious belief. It's just I've not seen anything.
You haven't seen any evidence, and I'm actually not going to put a counter argument to you because I really don't get any counter arguments to it on this particular program. I've invited people on who have taken a very firm position on it and who have written about it being a silly conspiracy theory, but they've declined to come on. But because you've said what you've said, I'm not going to in any way argue with it. Not that I don't disagree with it.
For our phone calls during the
week.
Save
that for the phone calls, but it's only right. I endeavour as best as I can, and I'm no angel. I'm far from an angel, but I endeavour. I do as well as I can to get the counter narrative on the program, so that I can at least then put to scientific people, well, this is why I believe in the geoengineering agenda.
I just like to say, to your listeners, by the way, because I obviously, with helping you build the site, I see what people say. Be under no doubt or under no illusion that Richie genuinely, passionately believes in the stuff he talks to you about on this program. And I mean, because we've had wonderfully heated conversations.
I've had black masses. I've gone to my local parish priest, and I've had black masses about you and your family after some of these arguments.
Well, people should know that that it's not it's not a bit of Alex Jones syndrome going on. Richie passionately believes in the stuff he talks to you guys about, which is why I call him a tinfoil wearing conspiracy whack job.
Absolutely,
and stand by that.
At the very least. At the very least, there's been more colourful descriptions of people like me in the shows that we do. Right, very, very quickly, triggerwarning.tv at 10:30. You've already given a hint as to what you'll be chatting with Graham in Pro-European Union.
Yeah,
wait till I see him. He's only living down the road as well.
Yes, we are going to talk a little bit about what we've spoke about. We're going to talk about computer game related, which is good for Graham because he's got Game Face show as well, and some other bits and pieces. I'm sure there'll be some Trump content and all the rude stuff we'll say for the TV show on Thursday.
Good stuff, mate. And it's triggerwarning.tv, LiveLeak.com. You're on YouTube as well, and Cogent Radio.
Yeah, you can download the app if you're on Android. If you're a hipster with an Apple device, no, we don't like you. Yeah. But if you've got Android, it's free on the Google Play Store, and I coded it so I can tell you there's no ads, no tracking, doesn't want to know your phone numbers, doesn't care who you are, just gives you access to all of Richie's podcasts.
That's right.
And the radio shows as well, live. So
folks, you have been listening to CIA Shill. LiveLeak is owned by the Zionist Hayden Hewitt. That's what you'll get now, because you don't believe in chemtrails.
I've got my Netanyahu Rocks t-shirt. I'm not being upstaged by Tommy Robinson, so I've got Benny Netanyahu Rocks.
And we didn't even get into poor Tommy. Listen, have a great show tonight. Thanks for the update and the explanation of the Article 13 Copyright Directive vote, which goes ahead a week tomorrow. It's huge. Let's see what happens, and we might talk just after it, right?
Yeah, we will. And listen, thanks for having me on, Richie. I appreciate it.
Anytime, mate.
Go and drink heavily now. Looking
forward to it. Right, have a good show tonight. Thanks, Hayden. Great stuff. Hayden Hewitt there, live from North Manchester, co-founder of LiveLeak.com. And look for Cogent Radio, the app, triggerwarning.tv, LiveLeak.com itself, which I waxed lyrical about a short time ago. That's pretty much it for the program. I don't have much time for much else. Loads of tweets came in during it. For more information on this copyright law vote, basically input into any search engine, input Article 13 EU or European Union, and you'll get some articles on there. Gillian York has written an excellent article for the New Internationalist, which is newint.org, NEWINT.org, newint.org. Check her out. And she's written a very good article explaining what this is and why it is deadly. That article only published today. And there are some members of the European Union, members of the European Parliament, MEPs, who are screaming from the rooftops about this, but you heard Hayden clearly say there only a short time ago, MEPs don't get to vote on this. Right. So there's a very good chance this will be carried next week, and then theoretically everything is going to change for independent content creators like myself, like Hayden Hewitt, and like everybody else whom you listen to, whether it's Maria Heller in the United States, whether it's Jordan Maxwell on jordanmaxwellshow.com, whether it's Kevin Barrett on truthjihad.com, it's all going to change. And ultimately, where it will lead to us not being able to broadcast. Because as Hayden said, Podomatic, YouTube, iTunes and all the rest of the platforms will have to say we can't carry you anymore, because we can't be watching you 24 hours a day in case you're in breach of copyright or in case you infringe copyright, because they will be liable as well for these fees. You see where this is going? Wonderful, isn't it? And very few people know anything about it.